Since 2019, the fentanyl flow into the US has become more diverse than a bag of mixed nuts. We're talking about a crisis that's not just multifaceted, it's a full-blown kaleidoscope of chaos. Now, who's the MVP in this smuggling game? According to the DEA, it's our amigos from south of the border, the Mexican cartels. They're like the rock stars of fentanyl trafficking, creating a symphony of chaos.
Today, the Biden administration announced sanctions against some of the Mexican drug cartels and their leaders. The Biden administration seems to believe that will help with fentanyl flowing across the southern border.
Since the revelation, many fentanyl factories in Mexico have been destroyed. However, 2 cartels are still selling fentanyl in the US. Let's explore these cartels and their operations. Sinaloa Cartel. There are more than a few factions within the Sinaloa Cartel. However, the Los Chapitos, the sons of El Chapo, control the biggest operation in the cartel and possibly in the world. In order to understand the rise of El Chapo's sons and their fentanyl empire, we must first delve into their early life and upbringing. Born into a world of crime and violence, these brothers were destined to follow in their father's footsteps. El Chapo had several children, and a select few, called the Chapitos, are now at the center of a power struggle within the Sinaloa Cartel. The remaining old guard leader is El Mayo Zambada, who is 72 years old. The Chapitos, including Ovidio, Ivan, and Jesus Alfredo, got involved in the cartel's operations at a young age to understand how it worked. Their childhood was far from ordinary. While other children played with toys and went to school, the Los Chapitos were surrounded by armed guards and lived in luxurious mansions. Their father, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, was one of the most feared and powerful drug lords in the world, and his sons were groomed to one day take his place. But it wasn't just the lavish lifestyle that shaped them. El Chapo made sure his sons understood the importance of discipline and ruthlessness. They were taught to be fearless, never to show weakness, and to eliminate anyone who posed a threat to their family's empire. As they grew older, the Los Chapitos became more involved in the cartel's operations. They learned the intricacies of drug trafficking, money laundering, and maintaining a network of loyal associates. Their father, always the guiding force, mentored them and imparted his knowledge, ensuring they were prepared to inherit his empire. But it wasn't just their father who influenced their path. The Guzman brothers were also surrounded by a network of seasoned criminals and trusted advisors. These individuals, many of whom had been with El Chapo since the early days, became mentors to the young men, teaching them the art of negotiation, the importance of alliances, and the consequences of betrayal. Despite their privileged upbringing, the Los Chapitos were not immune to the dangers of their world. They witnessed the violence and bloodshed that came with their father's business. They saw rival cartels rise and fall, and they understood the risks involved in their chosen path. As they entered adulthood, the brothers began to assert their authority within the Sinaloa cartel. They proved their worth by expanding the cartel's operations, venturing into new territories, and establishing connections with international drug trafficking organizations. Their ambition knew no bounds, and they were determined to surpass their father's achievements. But it wasn't just drugs that fascinated the Guzman brothers. They also had a taste for the finer things in life. Ferraris, Lamborghini, and other luxury vehicles became symbols of their wealth and power. They surrounded themselves with luxury, hosting extravagant parties and flaunting their riches to the world. And then there were the pet tigers. Yes, you heard that right. Ivan Archivaldo and Jesus Alfredo owned exotic animals, including pet tigers, which they kept as status symbols. These majestic creatures served as a reminder of their dominance and their ability to possess anything they desired. With their upbringing and the groundwork laid by their father, the Los Chapitos were poised to take control of the fentanyl trade. They recognized the shifting landscape of the drug market and saw an opportunity to capitalize on the growing demand for opioids in America. The brothers began by forging alliances with manufacturers who specialized in producing fentanyl, a highly potent synthetic opioid. They understood that fentanyl had the potential to yield massive profits due to its potency and low production costs. With their connections and resources, they established a steady supply chain that would soon flood the streets of America. To ensure their operations remained covert, the Los Chapitos utilized a complex network of intermediaries and front companies. They set up shell corporations disguised as legitimate businesses to facilitate the importation and distribution of fentanyl. These front companies operated under the radar, making it difficult for law enforcement agencies to trace their illicit activities. The brothers also employed sophisticated smuggling techniques to transport the fentanyl across the border. They utilized hidden compartments in vehicles, tunnels, and even underground pipelines to evade detection. Their ability to outsmart border patrols and law enforcement agencies allowed them to maintain a steady flow of fentanyl into the United States. Once the fentanyl reached American soil, the Los Chapitos relied on a network of trusted distributors to ensure its widespread distribution. They strategically placed their operatives in key cities and regions, targeting areas with high rates of opioid addiction. By exploiting the vulnerability of individuals already struggling with substance abuse, they were able to establish a loyal customer base. But the Guzman brothers didn't stop there. They recognized the power of branding and marketing in their illicit trade. They packaged their fentanyl products in eye-catching designs, often resembling legitimate pharmaceuticals, to attract buyers. They even went as far as creating counterfeit prescription labels to deceive users and healthcare professionals. Their marketing tactics proved successful, as the demand for their fentanyl products skyrocketed. Users were drawn to the potency of the drug, unaware of the deadly consequences that awaited them. The Guzman brothers' fentanyl empire was thriving, and they were reaping unimaginable profits. However, their success did not go unnoticed. Law enforcement agencies, alarmed by the rising death toll from fentanyl overdoses, launched a massive crackdown on the illicit trade. The Guzman brothers found themselves in a dangerous game of cat and mouse with the authorities, constantly evading capture and adapting their operations to stay one step ahead. Despite the risks, the Los Chapitos remained defiant. They saw themselves as untouchable, invincible even. Their wealth and power shielded them from the consequences of their actions, or so they believed. Law enforcement agencies, determined to dismantle the Guzman brothers' operation, launched a relentless pursuit. They followed the money, tracked the distribution networks, and gathered evidence to build a case against the Los Chapitos. The noose was tightening around their empire. In a dramatic turn of events, the authorities finally caught up with the brothers. Ovidio Guzman was apprehended in January and extradited to the United States in September 2023. However, the remaining Los Chapitos continue the fentanyl operations. U.S. anti-drug agents are actively pursuing the remaining brothers. The authorities have charged them and put a $10 million bounty on each brother, emphasizing the seriousness of capturing them. The fight against Los Chapitos goes beyond just breaking up a criminal group. It's about saving lives and safeguarding communities. Agencies like the DEA are working hard to disrupt their drug operations, dismantle distribution networks, and apprehend those involved in fentanyl production and trafficking. Despite the challenges, Los Chapitos have proven to be formidable opponents, using advanced methods to avoid law enforcement and protect their drug empire. However, recent developments suggest they are feeling the heat. The pressure from the United States to address the issue was mounting, and the cartel's operations were under scrutiny like never before. The Sons knew they had to make a bold move to protect their empire and navigate the treacherous waters of the drug trade, and so the banners appeared. Machine-printed messages, allegedly signed by Los Chapitos, prohibiting the production and sale of fentanyl in Sinaloa. But the question remained, were these banners authentic? Mexican authorities had not confirmed their legitimacy, and doubts lingered. However, sources in the region claimed that the banners were indeed legitimate, adding to the intrigue surrounding this unprecedented move. The Sinaloa cartel's fentanyl operations were a major source of income, involving thousands of people across multiple countries. Ceasing these operations would be a complex and challenging task, one that would require time and careful planning. Even if the cartel were to halt its fentanyl operations in Sinaloa, there were concerns that the trade would simply shift to other Mexican states where the cartel had a presence. The fight against fentanyl was far from over, and the banners, if authentic, were just the beginning of a long and arduous battle. Only time would tell what effect, if any, the banners would have on the drug trade in both Mexico and the United States. CJNG. Within the CJNG, the production of fentanyl is a highly guarded secret. It all starts in these hidden laboratories, where chemists work tirelessly to synthesize this deadly drug. These labs, shrouded in secrecy, are equipped with state-of-the-art equipment and staffed by skilled chemists who possess the knowledge to create fentanyl. The process is meticulous and precise, as even the slightest miscalculation can result in a lethal dose. The chemists carefully measure and mix the necessary chemicals, following a precise recipe. The result is a potent synthetic opioid that is many times stronger than heroin. Once the fentanyl is synthesized, it is transformed into various forms for distribution. One method involves pressing the drug into counterfeit prescription pills, mimicking legitimate pharmaceuticals. These counterfeit pills are designed to deceive unsuspecting users who may believe they are consuming a legitimate medication. The cartel goes to great lengths to ensure that these pills look identical to their legitimate counterparts. These counterfeit pills are a ticking time bomb. Users have no idea what they're really taking, and the potency of fentanyl makes it incredibly dangerous. Just one pill can be lethal. The production of counterfeit pills is just one aspect of the cartel's fentanyl operation. They also produce raw fentanyl powder, which can be mixed with other substances or used to create even more potent drugs. The packaging process is meticulous, with the cartel taking great care to ensure that the drugs are concealed and transported without detection. These drugs are then smuggled across the border, often hidden in inconspicuous vehicles or concealed within everyday items. The journey from Mexico to the United States is a treacherous one, filled with risks and challenges. Border Patrol agents work tirelessly to intercept these shipments, but the cartel's ingenuity and resources make it a constant cat-and-mouse game. They use sophisticated smuggling techniques like hidden compartments and tunnels to transport the drugs across the border. The cartel's tunnels are engineering marvels, allowing them to bypass traditional border security measures. These tunnels can stretch for miles, providing a direct route for drugs to enter the United States undetected. CJNG's fentanyl operation is a well-oiled machine. They have the resources, the manpower, and the determination to keep the drugs flowing into the United States. It's a constant battle for law enforcement to stay one step ahead. Despite the efforts of law enforcement, the cartel's fentanyl operation continues to thrive. The demand for this deadly drug in the United States is insatiable, and the cartel is more than willing to meet that demand. Once the fentanyl reaches the United States, it's handed off to a network of distributors who operate in major cities across the country. These distributors have established connections with street-level dealers who, in turn, sell the drugs to unsuspecting users. It's a well-organized system that ensures the cartel's product reaches every corner of the United States. The demand for fentanyl is incredibly high. It's cheap, potent, and highly addictive. People are willing to pay top dollar for it. Street-level dealers, often operating in impoverished neighborhoods, become the face of the cartel's fentanyl operation. They are the ones who directly interact with users, selling them the deadly drug. The distribution of fentanyl is not limited to street-level dealers. The cartel also utilizes online platforms and the dark web to reach a wider audience. Law enforcement agencies are constantly working to disrupt the cartel's distribution network. They conduct undercover operations, gather intelligence, and collaborate with international partners to dismantle these criminal organizations. The risks and challenges faced by law enforcement are immense. CJNG's distribution network is vast, spanning across borders and infiltrating communities. The operations of this cartel are handled by Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, also known as El Mencho. El Mencho's rise to power can be traced back to the 1980s when he first became involved in the drug trade. At the time, the Mexican drug cartels were dominated by the likes of Pablo Escobar and the Medellin cartel in Colombia. But El Mencho had his sights set on something bigger. He wanted to build his empire. With a cunning mind and a knack for evading law enforcement, El Mencho quickly established himself as a key player in the Mexican drug trade. He started by working as a hitman for the Milenio Cartel, a small-time criminal organization operating in Michoacan. But El Mencho had bigger plans. In the early 1990s, El Mencho formed his cartel, known as the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG. This marked the beginning of his meteoric rise to power. The CJNG quickly gained a reputation for its brutal tactics and willingness to eliminate anyone who stood in its way. Under El Mencho's leadership, the CJNG expanded its operations beyond Michoacan, infiltrating other states in Mexico and even crossing the border into the United States. Small-town America became a prime target for the cartel as its grip on these communities went, largely unnoticed by law enforcement. One of the key factors in El Mencho's success was his ability to adapt to changing circumstances. As the United States cracked down on drug trafficking along the border, El Mencho shifted his focus to methamphetamine production. The CJNG became one of the largest producers and distributors of methamphetamine in the world, flooding American streets with their deadly product. But El Mencho's empire didn't stop at drugs. He diversified his criminal activities, branching out into extortion, kidnapping, and human trafficking. The CJNG became a multi-billion-dollar criminal enterprise, with El Mencho at the helm, orchestrating operations from the shadows. What sets El Mencho apart from other drug lords is his ability to maintain a low profile. Unlike the flamboyant and ostentatious Pablo Escobar, El Mencho prefers to operate in the shadows, rarely appearing in public or granting interviews. This has made him an elusive figure. Despite his elusive nature, El Mencho's empire has left a trail of devastation in its wake. The CJNG operates with a level of sophistication that allows them to blend in seamlessly with the local population. They establish legitimate businesses, invest in real estate, and even make generous donations to community organizations. All the while, their criminal activities continue to thrive beneath the surface. One of the key tactics employed by El Mencho's empire is the use of violence to maintain control and instill fear. Their enforcers, known as sicarios, are highly trained and ruthless. They carry out brutal acts of violence, leaving behind a horrible message for anyone who dares to cross the cartel. Bodies are left on display, a chilling reminder of the consequences of defiance. But it's not just violence that El Mencho's empire relies on. They also employ a sophisticated network of corruption, infiltrating law enforcement agencies, local governments, and even the judicial system. This web of corruption ensures that their criminal activities go largely unchecked, allowing them to operate with impunity. The consequences of El Mencho's empire extend far beyond the borders of Mexico. The influx of fentanyl into American communities has fueled a nationwide opioid crisis with devastating consequences. Another thing that should also not be allowed to go under the radar is that these cartels, CJNG and Sinaloa cartels, have some allies. The role of China and Chinese gangs. The last few years, Chinese gangs have become significant players in the global drug trade, especially in the fentanyl market. They are taking advantage of the demand for this powerful synthetic opioid. To understand the extent of this transformation, we must go back to the origins of fentanyl production in China. It all began in the early 2000s when Chinese chemists developed the formula for fentanyl, initially intended for medical use as a painkiller. However, the allure of immense profits soon attracted the attention of criminal syndicates. One of the key factors that contributed to the rise of Chinese gangs in the fentanyl trade was the ease of accessing precursor chemicals. These chemicals, which are used in the production of fentanyl, were readily available in China due to lax regulations and a thriving underground market. Chinese gangs quickly recognized the opportunity and established sophisticated networks to smuggle these chemicals into clandestine labs. The Chinese government has made efforts to crack down on the illegal production and distribution of fentanyl, but the vast size of the country and the complexity of the criminal networks make it a challenging task. Despite these efforts, Chinese gangs continue to find ways to evade law enforcement and expand their operations. One of the most shocking aspects of the fentanyl trade is the level of organization and coordination among these criminal organizations. They operate like multinational corporations with hierarchies, supply chains, and distribution networks spanning across continents. These gangs have established connections with Mexican drug cartels, who play a crucial role in smuggling the finished product into the United States. The collaboration between Chinese gangs and Mexican cartels has created a deadly partnership that has fueled the fentanyl crisis in North America. Mexican cartels, known for their expertise in drug trafficking, provide the infrastructure and routes necessary to transport illicit drugs across the border. Chinese gangs, on the other hand, bring their knowledge of fentanyl production and the ability to manufacture the drug on a massive scale. The impact of this collaboration is staggering. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, fentanyl-related deaths in the United States have skyrocketed in recent years, surpassing deaths caused by heroin and prescription opioids combined. The potency of fentanyl makes it extremely dangerous, as even a small amount can be lethal. This has put law enforcement agencies and healthcare systems on high alert, struggling to combat the influx of this deadly substance. The rise of Chinese gangs in the fentanyl trade has not only affected North America but also other parts of the world. Europe, Australia, and even parts of Asia have seen an increase in fentanyl-related deaths and seizures. The global reach of these criminal organizations highlights the interconnected nature of the drug trade and the need for international cooperation to tackle this issue. Chinese gangs have adapted to new technologies and platforms to expand their reach and maximize profits. One of the key factors in their transformation has been the utilization of the dark web and online marketplaces. Chinese gangs are using the anonymity and encryption of the dark web to carry out their illegal trade. On these underground marketplaces, buyers and sellers can interact without fear of being traced by law enforcement. Fentanyl, along with other drugs, is readily available for purchase with just a few clicks. Chinese gangs have established a strong presence on these platforms, offering a wide range of fentanyl products to customers around the world. To ensure the safe delivery of their products, they have developed innovative methods of packaging and shipping. This has made it increasingly difficult for authorities to intercept these shipments and prevent the flow of fentanyl into communities. Through strategic marketing and advertising, they have created a demand for their products, targeting individuals struggling with addiction or seeking a cheap and easily accessible high. The convenience of online purchasing has made it easier than ever for people to obtain fentanyl, exacerbating the already dire situation. Another disturbing trend facilitated by online platforms is the sale of counterfeit prescription drugs. Chinese gangs have been known to produce fake pills that resemble legitimate medications, such as oxycodone or Xanax, but are laced with fentanyl. These counterfeit pills are often sold at a fraction of the price of the genuine medication, making them an attractive option for unsuspecting buyers. The potency of fentanyl fentanyl in these pills poses a significant risk, as users may unknowingly consume a lethal dose. Authorities are working on improving cybersecurity and international cooperation to fight against the online sale of illegal drugs, but technology changes quickly, and the battle against online criminal activity, especially involving Chinese gangs, is ongoing. United States is losing the fentanyl fight. Customs and Border Protection plays a crucial role in intercepting fentanyl shipments at the border. However, the sheer volume of drugs entering the country poses a significant challenge. In the first 6 months of 2023, officers seized more fentanyl than in the previous 5 years combined. The numbers are staggering. Seizures range from 200,000 pill loads to an astonishing 1.6 billion pills in a single shipment. Each of these pills is an unregulated pharmaceutical that can snuff out a life in an instant, but seizures alone do not tell the whole story. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid, making it difficult to estimate how much is actually being caught. The fight against this deadly drug requires a multifaceted approach that goes beyond the border. Troy Miller, the head of America's border agency, believes that partnerships are key to combating the fentanyl crisis. He launched Operation Blue Lotus, surging resources to California and Arizona, resulting in the seizure of 10,000 pounds of fentanyl in just 2 months. However, operations like Blue Lotus are temporary, and the question remains, do law enforcement agencies have the necessary resources and commitment from the federal government to make a measurable impact? Troy Miller acknowledges that the fight against fentanyl is an ongoing priority, but additional resources are needed to sustain their efforts. The synthetic nature of fentanyl makes it challenging to estimate the true extent of what is being caught, and seizures alone do not guarantee success. The strategies employed by law enforcement agencies have been in place for decades, but the fentanyl crisis demands new thinking. Partnerships with other agencies and innovative approaches are crucial to disrupting the supply chain and saving lives. However, seizing drugs is only one step in curbing the power of the cartels. To truly understand how they maintain their upper hand, we must go beyond the border and explore the complex web of operations that fuel the fentanyl crisis. Culiacan, the home base of the notorious Sinaloa cartel, is fortified by a vast surveillance network. With approximately 2,000 people connected to the cartel, fear and tension permeate the city. Undercover officers, phone taps, and advanced technology keep the community under constant watch. The cartel's access to sophisticated spyware technology allows them to launch targeted counteroffensives against anyone who dares to investigate their operations. No electronic communication is safe, and the fear of retribution hangs heavy in the air. Miguel Angel Vega, a journalist born and raised in this narco territory, provides us with a glimpse into the deep-rooted influence of the cartels. He takes us to the heart of Culiacan, where the lines between narcos and locals blur. In Culiacan, narcos are revered and even idolized. Baseball cards featuring images of drug lords are collected, and aspiring youngsters dream of becoming the next narco rather than a sports star. The cartel's grip on the community is both powerful and pervasive, but the influence of the cartels extends beyond admiration. They are responsible for a significant portion of Mexico's violence and death. In fact, narcos commit the vast majority of murders across the country, employing gruesome tactics that instill fear in the hearts of all. The cartel's power is not limited to life alone. Even in death, their influence casts a long shadow. Opulent tombs in local cemeteries serve as the final resting place for former drug lords, complete with air conditioning, TVs, and kitchens. These extravagant mausoleums, resembling small condos, stand as a testament to the wealth and status of the cartels. The absence of inscriptions and names adds an air of mystery, further perpetuating their myth and power. The deep roots of the cartels within Mexican society make them appealing to many. Poverty and limited opportunities drive some to protect and even idolize the narcos. But the violence and death they bring are undeniable, leaving communities torn between fear and admiration. Corruption within Mexican institutions further complicates the fight against the cartels. For decades, law enforcement has been linked to human rights abuses, including forced disappearances, torture, and extrajudicial killings. This culture of corruption undermines the trust of the people and hampers efforts to combat the fentanyl crisis. The Mexican government acknowledges the problem of corruption and is committed to fighting it. Investments in small and medium-sized communities aim to provide alternatives to the allure of the cartels. However, the road ahead is long and progress is slow. To truly address the fentanyl crisis, a comprehensive approach is needed. It requires tackling the root causes of poverty, corruption, and violence while also disrupting the cartels' operations and dismantling their networks. The fight against fentanyl goes beyond borders and requires international cooperation. The United States must acknowledge its role in arming the cartels and work together with Mexico to stem the flow of weapons and disrupt the cartel's power. If you enjoyed this video, click on the card showing on your screen right now for more videos.